What is up, Raveraide fam? Welcome to another episode of the Raveraide podcast with your host, Tyler Hardy. And as always, I just want to take a moment to express my overwhelming love and gratitude for each and every one of you guys who tune in on a daily and weekly basis to talk about all things Raveraide, self-improvement, spirituality, biohacking, everything that we talk about here at Raveraide with the main intention to assist you in becoming the most self-loved and self-actualized version of yourself that you can be. And so that way you can share your gift with the world while we're creating our gift here at Raveraide for you guys. So hopping into today's episode, what I want to talk about is something that I've been touching on quite a bit in previous episodes since I've been on the road. And I really haven't gone deep and elaborated on what, this particular subject is and what it's meant to me as of late. And what that is it's what's called upper limit syndrome. And where I discovered this whole ideology came from this book called The Big Leap by Gay Hendrix. And to be quite honest, it's one of these books that changed the entire course of my life. It helped actually solve one of the biggest problems that I was facing in my life. And I couldn't pinpoint, what the causation was. But when I read this book, it was like it was meant for me at this perfect time to, receive. And what that book talks about specifically is what's called upper limit syndrome. And that's when we reach that internal thermostat of what we feel that we're worthy of and what we feel like we deserve, and we exceed past that, what will happen oftentimes is we will either manufacture a problem or we will create some sort of fictitious drama that isn't for our highest good. But what it's intended to do is it's our subconscious mind actually reeling us back into what's comfortable, even though it's not what's necessarily best for us. And in this book, it just goes so far in depth about how we're the ones who limit ourselves. We're the ones who play small. We're the ones who, get to a place where we have some sort of success. Then we immediately pull ourselves back down, either with, not good internal dialogue, or, we create a problem with a spouse or friend or business partner, what have you, to the point where we can't even enjoy some of the greatest things that happen for us and some of our biggest accomplishments. Because when we don't have awareness around what our subconscious mind will tend to do and what we tend to do to ourselves when we experience that upper limit, it robs a lot of joy and fulfillment from your life. And that's something that I can speak on personally that I've experienced, is that I've robbed myself of so much joy and happiness in the present moment in my past by not being aware of the fact that, I would have something great happen, and then I would immediately jump to, worry, fear, anxiety, panic, whatever I was feeling in that moment. And what it was doing is it was pulling me back down to what felt comfortable, because for a long time I had, very limiting beliefs about what I felt like I deserved, and, things like love and experiences and money and success and all these things. I didn't feel that I was worthy of it. So when those things would start coming in and I would have an opportunity to transcend my, normal default mode network, like I've talked about in previous episodes, I would have those glimpses, and then immediately I'd pull myself back down, either with, negative self-talk, or I'd have a drama or an issue, or I would create fictitious worry or anxiety around things that never even happened to begin with. And it's such a sneaky and cunning thing that happens to so many people, I suspect. And this book just really pinpointed something for me that completely changed so much. And I'm going to explain later in this episode some of the things that I do when I feel that coming on, or I notice a thought or a pattern or a habit that creeps in that is trying to pull me down, and how we can work through those things and overcome those things and help stabilize our frequency at that new, baseline. Because once we hit a ceiling and break through it, that becomes our new bottom. That becomes our new baseline for where we operate from. And then we start compounding that on a daily basis. We start finding more wins. We start finding more happiness, joy, and abundance in all things. And from there, we're able to hit that new ceiling. And then, we become so good at it that, we start expanding, and our capacity to grow, our capacity to experience, and our capacity to love increases exponentially. And before you know it, you don't even identify in any way, shape, or form to that old version of yourself. You actually look back and you're like, I see what was causing me to have those kind of outcomes in my relationships. I was seeing what was keeping me financially stuck. I was seeing what was keeping me, in vibration of fear or lower frequency. And I can see how I was playing as just as much of a role in that as the people around me were playing a role in that and what I was allowing in my life. And from there, that's when we gain that power. And again, like I talked about in the previous episode, it's all about the awareness factor. The number one thing that's going to help you through this journey is your ability to, one, be aware of what's going on, internally, subconsciously, so that way you can recognize some of those triggers and things that you're doing to actually keep yourself stuck, in a place that's, a fraction of what you're actually capable of. And then two, it's being willing to be honest with yourself. And like I mentioned in other episodes as well, is your healing and growth and, expansion relies on the fact of your ability to be able to actually look at yourself transparently and honestly without judgment, and then take corrective, congruent action towards what it is that you're actually deserving. And I know that you're deserving of so much. And, a big intention of why I get on the, the mics every single week is to reiterate that to you, to show up for you, to show up for myself, to show up for the community that we're creating here at Raveraide. And, just let you know that when you are going through some of these challenges and some of these, hardships of growing and expanding, just knowing that you're not alone, that we do this together. We do this as a tribe and a group. And that's why I created this company. It's just as much about the human consciousness movement as it is about just the supplements that we create. The supplements are designed to help you hit that peak state and really have that mental edge when it comes down to working through trauma or those challenging moments in your life, so that way you can heal to your full capacity. And it's such a beautiful experience. It's the most psychedelic, cathartic experience to go through a healing process and break through, some of those levels and barriers that you've had in your past, and smash them and make those things, seem like they're just so irrelevant, in the grand scheme of things for yourself. And so kind of getting back on topic here, ever since I read this book, it really made me aware in so many ways. And I think the most common one, as someone who definitely is, I think a lot. I'm always thinking, I'm always ideating, I'm always, looking to the future of like, what's next? What am I supposed to be doing? What could I be doing right now to, make, the future life for myself and others better? And I became aware of the fact that, I've had a lot of really good things have been happening, just in my life. My health is in a really good spot. My mental health is incredible at this point. Financially doing very well. Relationships are doing really well, just in all these different areas. Right. And going through this most recent retrograde for the past few weeks, I really highlighted the areas in which I was, self-sabotaging myself, or I was, hitting that upper limit of like, having major success and breakthroughs in some areas, and then like kind of self-sabotaging in areas and neglecting other areas that are important, almost as a way to kind of pull myself back down. Because to be quite truthful, it's an uncomfortable feeling to have huge quantum leaps of growth, or to hit that upper limit, somewhere that you've never really ventured into before. And it's one of those things where it like I mentioned, it's uncomfortable. And if you're not aware of that uncomfortableness, the first sign that you feel that discomfort, you're going to go right back to what's, toxic or not good for you, or less than what, you're capable of being. And I see that commonly in people who, I think a great example that I'll speak on is people who are in relationships. They're with someone who's not good for them. The relationship's not healthy, and they have these moments of, breaking free and the things ending, and then they move on, and they have this time and space where they seem like they're doing really good. And then that unfamiliarity with that good feeling or that freedom or that liberation or that, self-love, makes them feel uncomfortable, and immediately they go back to what it is that feels comfortable, even though it's not what's good for them. And they end up back into a vicious cycle of an unhealthy relationship. And I can speak on that firsthand because I've been that person. I've lived that life. And I know what that's like is, you have these moments where you're free, and then you pull yourself back down. And you have these moments where you're, doing great and you're on top of the world with your health. And then, the wheels fall off the wagon, and then you're, back to bad habits, and you're having to rebuild things back up to where you were. And then that's tough on your mental health and things like that. And, if life was this, one linear path with minimal resistance, then, what would be the point of the journey, right? And so I think some of the beauty in our lives that we get to experience is, having those ups and downs and overcoming those things and saying, you know what, like, this thing has gotten me like 2 or 3 times now. I pulled myself down with this bad habit, or I pulled myself back down with spending time around these people, or I've pulled myself back down due to a limiting belief from my subconscious mind, playing out, and me being unaware as to what's playing out. I'm going to get it this time. I'm going to resolve this trauma. I'm going to heal this piece of myself that's limiting myself from the whole, that's limiting myself from my greatest potential. And from there, when we do that, we reclaim a piece of ourselves. We reclaim a piece of our power. We reclaim a piece of our knowing that we can do anything, we can overcome anything, and that we truly are infinite in all ways, shapes, and forms. And we have the ability to make massive change. And we can do it in a way that has minimal resistance. We can do it with great levels of flow. We can do it with great levels of happiness and joy and expectancy that the best outcome is always coming for us. And it comes back down to you just not getting in your way. It's not getting in your way and blocking yourself from what it is that you're capable of blocking or capable of being, excuse me. And I want to touch on what it is that I do now, as opposed to maybe even just a few months ago, even just, middle of last year. I would have these moments, the Raveraide's had so many incredible moments so far. This whole journey has just been something that's, perfect in every single way. And so many times we'd experience like a high level of success, or have something really awesome happen, or have a breakthrough happen. And I would, see the team celebrating, rejoicing in all the good things that are happening and expressing gratitude. And I would be there for as long as I could. And then immediately I'd pull myself back down into, the worry or the anxiety of what's next. What do I got to do? We want to keep growing. How do we keep growing? How do we keep serving? And not stopping and just stabilizing that frequency. And so my first tip to you is, when you experience something that is hitting that upper limit, that feels uncomfortable, but it's a really good thing that's happening for you, whether that be you getting a promotion or a raise, or meeting the love of your life, or meeting a new friend, or picking up a new hobby, or whatever it is that pulls you up to that upper limit that you're used to experiencing, in that, the top of the box in which you've allowed yourself to reside in, is feel the emotion in its entirety. Feel that feeling of, what that feels like, even if it feels uncomfortable, and then focus on consciously staying in that for as long as you possibly can. And what I mean by that is, like, when you get that good news, how long can you carry that feeling of gratitude or joy or happiness for? How long can you carry that in your now moment and onward? How long can you carry that? And the whole intention of consciously focusing on that is you're reprogramming and reconditioning your body to be able to stabilize at that frequency. And so many times I've had experiences where, like, I had this huge quantum leap and it's amazing, but it's very shaky feeling. It feels very unstable, I would say. And that's because of my inability at the time to stay in that frequency and stay in that moment and stay in that high vibration of, happiness or joy or, elevated emotion, whatever you're experiencing, and maintaining that. And because it was such a foreign thing to me. And now when I experience these things, I focus on staying in that moment as long as I possibly can, and expressing as much gratitude as I can, and really taking a moment to make sure my body feels good in that moment, and really, like, locking in that memory of how good that feels to have that accomplishment, or to help that person, or to create, the next best version of Raveraide, or have a breakthrough moment with the team, whatever that is, and really express gratitude for that moment. So then that way it's conditioning, my neural circuitry to keep replicating that and start stabilizing that frequency of, like, it should feel normal to have great levels of success. It should feel normal to have great levels of health. It should feel normal to have healthy relationships that are mutually beneficial. And when those things over time, start to happen so frequently, that becomes the new, bottom, or that becomes the new floor. And we're able to, have that be our default mode network. Then when something out of the ordinary comes that maybe is lower vibrational or something that's not for our greatest good, it feels weird to be around that. It feels uncomfortable to be around that. And that's how we kind of re-hone our internal compass. And that's how we start to have great discernment as to what is and what isn't great for us. And so that's the first thing I recommend, is when you have these big breakthrough moments that are inevitable for you, they're coming, they're here, they're now. When those happen, really focus on stabilizing and staying in that elevated emotion for as long as you can, and really focus on conditioning yourself to this should happen all the time. I'm okay with this happening all the time. I welcome this in. I'm accepting of all the great things coming into my life, and then hold that for as long as you possibly can. And you'll start to see when sometimes people around you try to pull you out of that unconsciously, or there's a situation on your job or something pulls you out of that, then you can start making change as to, hey, I want to experience this all the time. This job or this person or this thing is pulling me out of that. And then you take corrective action, congruent action to make that change in your life. And then I would say the second big thing is allow the thoughts that come in, that negative self-talk after you've had a great moment, or that desire to potentially start a conflict or an issue with somebody, allow it to pass, because, our thoughts are not our masters, and neither are our emotions. We're in control of the ship, inside of us. We're in control of that internal compass. And those are just the commentators. You don't have to take action on every thought. You don't have to, always speak your mind, especially when it's not, beneficial or constructive for who you're speaking to, or yourself for that matter. And so just know that, when that comes in and when we have a high level of awareness, it puts us in a place where we can see and be the observer of that coming in that, that negative self-talk, or, that desire to be angry, or whatever it is that might pull you back down. And then we can start to see the absurdity of, I'm injecting so much worry, fear, anxiety, and lower vibration into this beautiful moment that I don't need to do this. And I get to choose, and I get to pick, what it is that I experience. And then you just negate those things. And if you do that enough times over a long enough time horizon, you're going to get to a place where that voice, that critic, that thing, that piece of your subconscious just disappears, because you're not acting upon it. You're not reconditioning the body back down to what feels comfortable, even though it's not what's conducive and for your highest good. And so knowing that, gaining that high level of awareness is going to help you pinpoint, and observe how you're getting in your own way, how you're throwing in those, fears and worries and anxieties for no reason, and how it's really not helping anyone. Most importantly, yourself. And so those are the two of the big things that I really recommend when, you're brushing up against that ceiling, because the same mechanism that creates worry and anxiousness is the same, mechanism that creates excitement, right? And so it's one of those things where we can identify, how we're getting in our way, but also on top of that, how we can stabilize that frequency. When we start identifying, I can hold myself in this frequency for as long as possible, and it starts becoming, hours upon hours upon hours, and then days upon days upon days, and weeks upon weeks, and so on and so forth. That's how we create lasting change. That's how our entire reality shifts and changes. And that's something that I've really been going through, since around the time that I've read that book, is really just a big shift of, I can stay in a great mood all day. I can stay in a high vibration all day. I can stay where I want to stay on a daily basis, regardless of what's going on around me, no matter how much stress there is, no matter how much I've got going on, no matter how much my, if you have a boss, is coming down on you, whatever it is, that you may be experiencing, it's one of those things where, you are able to maintain that, then you're able to start seeing solutions. You're able to start seeing the path towards what it is that you're actually meant to be doing. And your whole life changes in such a beautiful way. And, I think that so many people, if not everybody, experiences some sort of upper limit syndrome. And where that comes from, I didn't really get into. It's mostly preconditioned things from, our subconscious, from our past, from our childhood, from our beliefs around relationships and love and the examples that we saw, or money and finances and professional success, or whatever it is that, you can think of. All these things tie back to what we were taught. And so oftentimes you see like people who, their parents did okay financially, and they do okay financially, and they never break through that ceiling because of the fact that they never question that belief. And anytime that they hit up against some sort of thing that maybe propelled them past that, they would find something to pull themselves down. And I think I can give you another great example, which has been, just the weight loss journey that I've experienced. Is like, I've lost probably 300-400 pounds, and the reason for that is because that internal thermostat that I had, I would hit a new low or be in the best shape of my life, and then I would get sidetracked, or my limiting beliefs would come in because of the identity that was created around that trauma or that way of being. I've always been, that overweight person. So who would I be without being the overweight person? How vibrant would I be? How healthy would I be? Right? And so I'd get to that point where I was really close, and then something would come in, and I would allow that, upper limit syndrome to kick in, and that belief system, that deep-rooted subconscious belief to kick in around identity that I've created unnecessarily, from my past. And then I would keep, going back up and down, yo-yoing, right? And I think that's a common, really good example to look at that I think a lot of people experience. It's the perfect example, really, when you think about it, because you're seeing people brush up against their upper limit every single step of the way. Because if there was no upper limit, they would immediately get themselves to where they wanted to go, right? But I would hit a point where I was like, oh, wow, this is the lowest you've ever weighed. You haven't weighed this much since you were 12 years old. And then boom, right back up, and then back down, and then back up, and then back down, and then back up, and then back down, right? And so as I broke through that plateau that I created, or broke through that ceiling, I was able to say, hey, this is the new norm for me. This is where I'm going to stay, because I deserve to be healthy. I deserve to be vibrant. I deserve to feel great all the time and show up as the best version of myself. And I deserve to shed that level of identity that I created. I deserve to be healthy and vibrant and in the best shape of my life, because I know it's going to only impact everyone in a more positive way. And so you start really getting down to the point of like creating a compelling argument for yourself as to why you deserve to break through that upper limit that you fictitiously created for yourself for one reason or another. And then you start seeing the absurdity of like, wow, I'm the one who kept myself there. I'm the one who put myself in this position. I'm the one who allowed that person to take advantage of me. I'm the one who allowed myself to work that job that I hated. I'm the one who created this for myself. And just as easily as I created this, I can create something better. I can create something that makes me happier. I can create something that makes me more money, that feels more in alignment, that serves more people. I can just as easily live in the house of my dreams. I can just as easily, have great, healthy relationships, just as easy as I've had unhealthy relationships. I can have everything that I want in my life. I can be anything that I want. If you're willing to have the awareness and do that deep inner work and heal and meditate and gain that level of self-awareness of yourself to actually be able to see where it is that you've been limiting yourself. And then leaning into that uncomfortability, which is I think the last point that I want to make, is when I identify or feel myself brushing up against that upper limit, the thing that I can recommend to you most is you standing in your power and saying, hey, you know what? No, I'm not going to regress. I'm not going to fall back into that unconscious pattern of doing things that are not congruent and conducive for my greatest good. I'm going to lean into that discomfort. I'm going to find a way to stabilize it. If that means I have more responsibilities or whatever it is, I'm going to figure out how to stabilize that frequency, so then that way that becomes my normal default mode network. So then that way becomes my way of being without even thinking about it. I'm going to lean into that discomfort because I know on the other side of that discomfort, is the life that I deserve, the life that I owe to myself. I came here for a reason. I came here to give. I came here to create. I came here to love. And I came here to be the best version of myself and actualize my full potential. And on the other side of that discomfort is all of those things you could ever want for yourself. And so, when you feel that coming on, when you feel the shakiness of, the upper limit kind of hitting, and you're like, okay, I am in a place where I have not charted into these waters. I've not ventured into this territory yet. So I'm going to take it easy on myself. I'm going to slow down a little bit because I'm going to increase my self-awareness at this time and feel my urges of like, oh, wow, that urge to go do this thing or this bad habit or eat this food is going to pull me back down. No, I'm going to consciously make a different decision for myself. And that right there, my friends and family, is exactly how you make lasting change. And that's how you become quite literally superhuman in every way, shape, and form. But it comes down to that upper limit, and we're going to experience that upper limit so many times through this journey here at Raveraide together. I experience it all the time, getting to solve new problems on a daily basis, balancing multiple businesses while taking care of my health, while tending to my relationships, all these different things. So much going on. I'm figuring out how to stabilize that frequency and make sure that I'm showing up in the best way possible and that nothing else is suffering and that you guys are experiencing the best possible thing, in every way, shape, and form, whether it be the podcast or our products or, just talking to us on Instagram DMs or, whatever it is, in whatever way you communicate with us and interact with us. We want to make sure it stays at that high frequency and that quality. And so it's really leaning into that discomfort and saying, you know what, hey, this discomfort that I'm experiencing right now is just growing pains that are going to help me evolve and expand myself in such a beautiful way that I'm going to be a million times more than what I am right now. And I'll look back and say, I'm so glad I pushed through that discomfort because it fortified my inner belief in knowing that I will show up for myself and I will do what needs to be done consistently. So then that way I can actualize what it is that I am meant to do here and who I am meant to be. And that's really it. And so this lesson, I would say, is probably one of the most important things that I've ever learned in my life. Like when I really got down to the nuts and bolts of things, really digging deep into my subconscious and really getting down to some of those, deep core wounds that I've been, healing, I really began to see like how many times and I've recollected so many times I've looked back and I'm like, man, you injected some fear right there. You injected worry. You did this or you did that. And from a place of love and understanding that I was doing the best I could at the time that I was doing it. But I'm able to look back now and be like, do you see how much you limited yourself? Now that I'm aware of those things, if I ever feel that sensation or that feeling coming on as I'm experiencing something that's up on my upper limit, something that I haven't experienced before, I'm going to know consciously to silence that voice, to silence that critic, and allow myself to even lean in more to the amazingness of the experience that I'm having at that moment. And that's how we really make those big leaps, and that's how we stabilize that frequency. I don't want you to just be great sometimes. I don't want you to be great on, the weekends or, every other day. I want you to be great consistently, and I want you to compound those daily wins and get yourself to a place where you're truly undeniably in your knowing the greatest version of yourself that you've ever been. And the next day you're going to be the greatest version of yourself. And the next day you're going to be the greatest version of yourself. And the next day, even if you're not the greatest version of yourself, you know exactly how to get yourself back on track. You know exactly how to help yourself stay congruent in everything that you do. So that way you get where you want to go. And that way, we can celebrate at the top of the mountain together, because I'm really looking forward to see how many people we positively impact here in our time at Raveraide. So without further ado, guys, I hope that, you gained a lot of value and insight out of this episode. We're starting to run a bit low on our inventory. We're back up on Amazon, which is exciting because we were out of stock for quite a while on Amazon just because we wanted to keep a lot of the inventory on hand for music festivals and stuff like that. But now as we're growing, we see the value in having it back on Amazon. So both the lemonade and the super berry are on Amazon currently. So be sure to check that out. We're planning on going to some music fests on the East Coast, to be determined. But yeah, we're really looking forward to seeing you guys this year. We're working on our biggest project yet. I can't really, again, say what it is that we're working on. I want it to be a bit of a surprise. If you guys follow me pretty closely on my Instagram, you're probably able to piece some of it together because I have shared little, tidbits of what's going on. Just for those who are, deeply involved in Raveraide, I want to keep you guys in the know to some extent, and so that way, you can follow us along on the journey. But this project that we're working on is something that I've wanted since the first day that I ever thought of Raveraide, and it's something that brings a tear to my eye and so much gratitude when I think about this particular project and what the implications are for us as a company and where we're heading. So as always, I love and appreciate each and every single one of you guys who support what we do, who buy our products, who live the Raveraide lifestyle. Because it's more than just the product. It's more than just the words that are coming through this microphone. It's a way of being. It's a way of living. It's about self-discovery. It's about finding your truth. It's about contributing in a meaningful way. It's about breaking through and shattering those lower paradigms of, lower vibrational frequency and fear that a lot of people are, living on this planet, myself included, for a very, very, very long time. And I really want this to be the most well-rounded and holistic way for people to plug in and get the information that they may need to break through and become the best version of themselves, whether that be through their health, through their mental health, through their spiritual practice, through their relationships, through trauma healing, through understanding ego and superego and the different mechanics of the way that our brain and minds work. So then that way we can really be so well-rounded and whole and complete in every way that you could ever imagine. So be sure to check us out at www.drinkraveraide.com. And as always, my name is Tyler Hardy, and it's been a pleasure. Hope you guys have an amazing week. We'll talk soon. Peace.